Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Today is Monday, August 28th. Managed to not oversleep today, so we'll start a little bit earlier. Or start really almost on time. Let's go ahead and start here opening 10 packs. So I suppose for the accountability section over the weekend, I finished playing Marvel's Telltale Guardians. What is it? Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series. Honestly, pretty awful Telltale game of the Telltale games. I just did not really care at all about the Guardians of the Galaxy. Each episode seems to focus around showing me just like backstory on each individual member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and if you don't care about them, then that doesn't really matter. You're not making deep moral choices like in The Walking Dead Season 1. You're definitely playing way less as far as actual interactive video game content. They do have a light and dark survey here where I guess I could give them a piece of my mind on that one, but I also managed to do what turned into a quick look for 2 hours of Polybridge to realize that, yeah, I'm probably never going to be the type of person who can really enjoy playing a bridge building game. Polybridge seemed like it was going to give you a really nice tutorial at the beginning, but it's deceptive. It has you build basically a couple of bridges in the tutorial, then it just throws you to the wolves, and it doesn't really explain anything. And even compared to other bridge building games, Polybridge is lackluster in quality of life improvements and things that could really make it. So I did manage to play off screen to get past this point and even further past this point. So there is a decent argument to play for at least 2 victories to get 200 gems, then 2 more victories to get 50 more gems, 2 more victories to get 50 more gems, and then 2 more victories to get 300 gems. If I get really lucky. It does definitely feel like when these things happen, once you get towards the ends of them, people stop playing. People kind of give up. Either that, or they've just figured out how to put bots in it, or even Konami is running bots in it so people win more often. It definitely feels like there's a lot more competition and challenge at the beginning of these events. Although in all fairness, that may just be a case where all the good players have been moved up a internal ranking system and they're just not being matched to me. So yeah, I'm now back to just trying to think about what I'm going to play next. I made some YouTube shorts, and there's definitely something that doesn't quite work with my YouTube shorts. I'm losing maybe 10%, probably less, of all the YouTube shorts. Something goes wrong, and I'm not sure what it is, where the videos are getting named the wrong thing and they're not getting rotated by my program. As part of that, and because of me updating OBS, I've gotten rid of one of my computer programs, Python scripts that it was using, a modified Python script from that somebody else had made to rotate in the right URL for the YouTube short videos, and I've now been able to move that into a newer version of Advanced Scene Switcher. So instead of software working with software working with software working with software, now it's just one less software in the middle, which ideally you want to get as few pieces of software as necessary. For making YouTube Shorts, it's still a lot. You have UI Vision running a macro to start the whole process off. It exports 2 comma-separated value files into the downloads folder. Now, Advanced Scene Switcher looks for those files and acts upon them to figure out what to do as far as making OBS record the YouTube Shorts. And then once it has recorded the video, the 1 minute long short video, then it hands that video off to a .bat file, which then runs ffmpeg to rotate the video and rename the file, which potentially maybe I don't need that either, but I'm not ready to make that big of a change. I also listened to several pieces of audio from the audio library on YouTube, so the next step I'm going to do is have about 10 different songs. Like, it is obviously not very great to have just the exact same song playing in the background. Theoretically, I could get rid of the song completely, but I wouldn't really want to go down that direction and play the audio from like the trailers, because yeah, that's not my desire really. Is my fear there is that if I let the trailers play, then there's just going to be a bunch of content IDs on YouTube Shorts, or even DMCAs, which that could be really bad if that was the case. Although if YouTube said, heck, 1 minute of sampling a song, even if it is only a 2-minute song, is not something that they're going to let in their content ID system, then I'd feel safer about doing that. Inherently, I don't know what the shows are showing people on the YouTube Shorts. It's not like I'm looking at them. So any YouTube Short could slip by with just horrific, unacceptable, not family-friendly content in the video. I don't think this is going to work. Let's see if this works, but I suspect one of these cannot be destroyed. So I've been live streaming to Twitch as I'm recording the pre-recorded footage that will air many months later on YouTube. And I've double checked as far as what you need to do to be able to upload a video. They have 2 tiers. One is an affiliate, one is a partner. Being a partner, I imagine, is much more difficult than being an affiliate. And I've achieved everything that you need to do to be an affiliate, except for averaging out 3 concurrent viewers at a time. And there may be a little bit more to the math there, but inherently it is fairly disconcerting to me. Like, I don't really have a lot of faith that even with putting a lot of footage out there, I would ever be able to get 3 people on average, which means really closer to having way more than 3 people watching my content on Twitch. And even if I did succeed for a brief moment, you gotta keep up that momentum. Inherently, I would say if you compare it to YouTube, same thing. Like if YouTube had a requirement that you had to have 3 people watching even your live streams on average, I would never ever be able to get back into the YouTube partner program at that. It would be just incredibly unlikely. And Twitch isn't any better in that scenario. There's a huge amount of content creators on Twitch that have nobody watching, or 1 person watching, 2 people watching. If you could, and the requirement itself seems fairly arbitrary. Like, it doesn't quite make a lot of sense to me that you would need 3 people at the same time. Other than that is just Twitch saying, we want you to be the kind of content creator that encourages and engages with the chat way more than anything else. Which inherently that is the problem with you, with Twitch in general, is that they just don't care about the content that's being made. They only care about the engagement from the chat. And that is why Twitch is the way it is. Certainly. That's why it's the product that it is. That's why just chatting is usually the biggest category on Twitch. It's why Twitch has not really done anything to improve what could have been a very good interface specifically for gamers, since it is a platform only for gamers. And just compare it to like real gamers, real world gamers, not people trying to be celebrities, not content creators streaming online. How many real world gamers average here 3 other people on the chat when they're playing, that they always get with their boys of 4 or 5, a team of 4 or 5 people, and they're always on the headset talking, on the mic talking when playing? I don't think there's that many people that would average 3. Sure, there's people that will hit numbers higher than that, but that would be basically multiplayer teams and esports teams. People that are only playing one game and only playing in some kind of co-op team style. Alright, well, I'll leave it at that, but that is my feeling, certainly, is that I feel like I may spend months and months and months streaming and effectively spoiling pre-recorded footage on Twitch for it to have no effect whatsoever, and I'll still be in the same situation where YouTube's dumb algorithms may mistakenly delete my channel at any point, and then there's just no backup place. If Twitch dropped the requirements, or if I became an affiliate otherwise, then yes, I'll start scheduling videos to air, pre-recorded videos to air in line with Twitch. And frankly, at this point, I'm not even gonna bother to check if there's some rules change that's happened there. where Twitch is going to be upset for me reposting videos from YouTube. I'm pretty much not going to bother to check that on any service. And yeah, my other concern certainly with Twitch is just the longevity of such a service. I wouldn't put it past Amazon.com to just shutter Twitch. Like, Amazon's not really competing against YouTube in a lot of other ways, so I could see them shuttering Twitch. I could see them focusing just on Prime TV. I could see them trying to bring people watching Prime Video, bring their most successful streamers to Prime Video or Freevee channels, and then eliminate Twitch as being what it is. Let's go ahead and start going through the news. I'm probably going to fall asleep if I take too long, although we don't really have a ton of news today because it is so early in the morning and it's been a weekend. As far as other things I did over the weekend, I'm trying to get into Ghost Whisperer, not really getting anywhere with it so far after finishing Medium. I do feel like Ghost Whisperer is almost like the CW equivalent to Medium, where Medium won a evening primetime Emmy. Ghost Whisperer feels like it would be on TNT, PBS, just not quite as polished of a concept. And I think part of that is Ghost Whisperer stayed true to a very clear idea of there will be a murder, she will get help from the ghost to discover the murder in Ghost Whisperer. In Medium. In Ghost Whisperer, it's just there is somebody dead and they want to pass, the ghost wants to cross over, and so that often involves sending a message to a family member or something like that. Although in Ghost Whisperer, she like runs an antique shop in a small town, which seems like the worst premise ever, because if you're in a small town, you're very quickly going to be known as the psychic. At least in Medium, it was Phoenix, Arizona, and she bent over backwards to keep it a secret. For the first few seasons at least, and they didn't even make that big of a deal of it after she was exposed as being a psychic. And there is definitely some weirdness at the final episode, which they very much abruptly ended Medium, in that they had the gall to say the real Alison Dubois is living happily in Phoenix, Arizona, or something like that. And I guess maybe there actually was somebody named Alison Dubois that maybe does claim to be a psychic, but there is not for a second that I feel like anybody engaged in creating the Medium TV series that they actually believe that there is a real psychic out there. If the police are claiming they're using a psychic, I imagine they're probably just illegally wiretapping people and using a psychic as an excuse as to where they're getting information, which isn't a terrible plan. Medium also as a TV show, since I'm more interested in talking about Medium than I am about Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. It sets up... It has to do a lot of work to make a psychic not become an overpowered character. If you can see the future perfectly, if you can read other people's minds and memories or emotions perfectly, then you're gonna work very hard to create some kind of antagonist or some kind of enemy. Let's see, what can we summon here? Guess this is what we've got to summon. Then from that, we can summon this. And then from that, we can summon this. So this guy's attack will double if I detach 2 cards during the battle's damage stage. Let's see, we have a Video Games Chronicles article saying Red Dead Redemption series writer leaves Rockstar after 16 years. Is that Michelle or Michael Unsworth? One or the other, I imagine. Also worked on Max Payne 3, LA Noire, and GTA, which in a lot of ways I think means they basically got nobody left as a writer. Well, no, they may have somebody else's writer, but they've lost one of their important writers at Rockstar. Assuming Rockstar is ever going to actually make a new game, which is perhaps too big of an assumption to make. Clearly that guy just surrendered. We have 2 more of the season pass levels to get up to. I haven't done a Lego in a while. Like, I'm still incredibly behind, and I have like 2 Nintendo Switch games I'd like to play before Christmas. But yeah, and I basically haven't done more than like 1 set in 6 months as far as Lego. But this set does catch my eye, certainly. I always like they're effectively castles, and to take the Harry Potter Hogwarts and scale it down to a microfig style, I think works pretty well. Looks like there might be some secrets under the bottom here. I don't know if this is supposed to be a golden snitch or somebody on a broomstick or something else. Now, previously, what Lego had been doing with the Harry Potter series is selling several sets that could interconnect to make a minifig scale Hogwarts. But I would say that is probably too expensive. Just generally speaking, I would say it's probably way too expensive to buy all those different sets. Okay. We'll end that there. So yeah, Harry Potter seems to be constantly getting revitalized as AT&T, now owning Warner Brothers, probably don't have a lot more to make anything otherwise. Although, with this whole writer's strike and actor's strike, I definitely have heard some arguments that we are hitting basically the end stage of Hollywood, and that they just, even before the strike, did not want to make content at all, did not want to make movies, did not want to do anything at all. Blue Beetle was recently released, and they've apparently given up on that, is the rumor, and I didn't even know it had come out because there's just no advertisement around it. Entire movies are being put on the shelf for tax write-offs. Inherently, I think Hollywood and corporations in general are trying to find other ways to make their stock prices go up other than actually making a product and selling it to consumers. Which, you know, that's not gonna work in the long term. Guess we'll activate this and see if that works. Gamatsu says Atelier Resleriana, Forgotten Alchemy, and the Polar Knight Liberator second trailer lays details and gameplay are now available, which I don't recognize this game at all, so I must have totally missed the first trailer. It is marked as a PC and smartphone game, so when you see that, that tends to imply to me that it is smartphone first. This might be more of a Genshin Impact type clone game. Although in all fairness, I am looking for a new mobile game, so if this was coming to an English server, there might be a decent argument towards engaging with it. Let's see if we can activate this. So what I'd like to see is something that would be a quick spell, but doesn't seem like that's the case, so we'll play that instead. Do I want the potential protection of this? Probably. Yeah, I just had a funny thought as far as like, would I ever have any time, as somebody who's always falling behind and never has any time and has insomnia that makes him sleep way too much, particularly in these late summer hot days. would I ever have time to have like a stream where I'd just be focused on interacting with the chat? Probably never. Like, and there's kind of no way to trigger that either. Even if I was to go to Twitch and just say I'm just chatting, I honestly would just sit there until somebody said something on the chat. And that may be hours, that may be days. And I'm not good with engaging with the chat by any means. Even when there's 2 or 3 people talking on YouTube chat, it's sometimes distracting. Yeah, as far as cell phone games, since I was talking about this Atelier cell phone game, which doesn't seem like it has an English version yet. What's funny is they say it's the 25th mainline entry in the Atelier series, which is perhaps to argue that their mainline series has too big of an open doors policy. Yeah, I'm still playing my favorite mobile game, Destiny Child, which at some point I'll have to stop calling it my favorite mobile game, or lewd waifu gacha mobile game is usually how I describe it. Character collector game, because it will be shutting down probably in less than a month now. I'm just catching up on the last bits I can catch up with, and then I will be stuck with the memorial update version of the software, whatever that is. They still really haven't explained fully what that's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if it is mostly what the game is now, with a lot of elements just removed. If there was a way you could still play it to some extent, if you could still play the single player and through the single player level up characters, that would be interesting. But I am definitely at a point now, even if you could level up characters, that there wouldn't be much more there. I could maybe put another 6 months of no new content gameplay into Destiny Child before everything would be either maxed out or it just wouldn't really matter. There are some late game elements that are nearly impossible, so maybe if they leave in those elements and you could level up characters, there might be an argument for that, but it'd be fairly boring. I definitely wouldn't be coming back to the game for daily quests, and I'm not sure the game really is going to give you daily quests, even if you can play the single player thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they effectively get rid of the stamina system and just let you play all the levels for free. I have unlocked almost all the costumes that I can unlock. I've unlocked all but 2 of the spa outfits for all the characters in the public bath spas. I've unlocked all the characters I'm ever going to unlock. I'm missing some collaboration things that they're not going to let me collect because I didn't collect them during the collaboration events. I've upgraded almost everything to level 6, and I've awakened them to top tier levels. I've got about 6 characters, which I'll get that done too. So probably won't get all the puppets, which are the least important things there, and I very well might get all the soul cards, which that's a lot of nonsense if you don't play Destiny Child, and most people don't. But if anything, the prolonged death of a game is something I've never really experienced before, where somebody said, hey, we're actually going to shut down this game for the most part, and they gave me enough warning. Usually what happens for Western games or games in general is that they just immediately announce a shutdown, or they give you a week. But there was always something special about Destiny Child in the first place, because it is a character collector and the character art is very nice, and that I definitely have a certain affinity for looking at the character art, on top of them just being lewd anime waifus. To that extent, the game that I'm trying to play to replace it, Tinka Fuma, which is just straight up an adult game with actual nudity in it, it's a pale comparison, certainly, to Destiny Child. The art is not quite as good or unique, and there aren't enough characters, and I question if there ever will be enough characters. There's a stamina system that early in game is really slowing things down for me, and there's a level up system that is also slowing things down because my team is just not strong enough. And I know Tinka Fuma is at least to a season 11 in one of its events, so unless it has a season every month, the game has been out for a while. Even if it does have a season every month, 11 months old is still 11 months later than you would generally like to jump into any kind of mobile game that you're going to try and play for the long term. So yeah, I definitely would be somewhat interested in the potential. Whoops. In a potential Atlee or Rydo game coming out on the cell phone. I'm still also playing the Lower Decks Star Trek game, which is fine, but it's not really giving me enough content. Lower Decks doesn't let you go back and relive the story elements, and that's the most interesting part. So it is a very simplistic game that really could use some updates and improvements. But in all fairness, I don't think it's actually that old of a game either. So maybe eventually it would get those features. Moving on, YouTube Gaming had, let's see, a summer gaming list here, checklist. So this is just an example of some big games to potentially consider. And then for some reason they started showing all these, well, I almost wonder if this is AI art or if this is just ridiculousness, and that they're adding a whole bunch of nonsense to it. For the most part though, they are still very much just spouting nonsense as far as YouTube Gaming. Well, I've lost. Yeah, I don't know why I brought up YouTube Gaming's Twitter things. They were promoting Gamescom, so that's not super surprising. yeah. I guess I'll leave it at that since I have no idea why I even opened that tab. Twitter, I will say, I guess you may be damning it with faint praise, but Twitter and Elon Musk have managed to not create any new major controversies in the past week or so. Last thing he did is he said he was going to get rid of blocking as a feature, and I don't know if that was a troll statement, you never know, with Elon Musk. And then that was that. Meanwhile, Threads from Facebook is promising to have a web version of its new offering within a week, so if Friday rolls around and you can't use Threads on PC, then you know that they were wrong. Censored Gaming came out with a regular video 15 hours ago, just kind of recapping the lack of success for the Xbox in Japan. But on the 26th, he put out this weird video that does not have his voiceover in it or his artistic input in it at all. It is a collection of videos from somebody else talking about the book and movie versions of American Psycho and censorship and controversy issues, which if he wasn't called Censored Gaming and if he was just called Censored Media, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. Even if he had just put his own voice over there and found a way to pivot it in some way so it had something to do with video games, then I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But honestly, it really feels like it is just not fair use by any means. I could definitely, like, I'm no lawyer, but I could definitely tell you, when you put up a video and you're only maybe editing together and making a montage of other people's footage, that is not fair use. Like, had he come on to the beginning of the video and said, censorship doesn't just affect video games, it also has affected books and movies. For example, American Psycho, and then he started to talk about it and he distilled what is said in these videos down to a video essay where he's the main voice and he's restating things that other people have say in the video, and if he used the video clips to just emphasize and prove what he's saying to be true, that would be way better. On the other hand, if I'm going to be generous, the Censored Gaming guy at least hasn't had a major controversy lately, or not controversy is the wrong word, major disaster happened in his life lately. Like, he went basically from being just a normal guy who seemed to have no problems to being homeless and having no money and having to beg multiple times, major eye infection, either it really was the case of just the worst rotten luck he possibly could have, or it was a case of him really doing an excellent job at e-begging and conning people, which I'd be generous and say it probably was just rotten luck. But that doesn't excuse poor decision making and putting out a video like this on your channel that's not fair use potentially causes a YouTube channel like Censored Gaming to be taken down. Like this video effectively is a bunch of footage also where the difference is there's a voiceover on it, so it does feel way more fair use than this, which feels nothing like fair use. The only thing I could think is maybe his microphone was broken and so he couldn't do a voiceover and just felt the need he had to put out content, but then why put out content that doesn't have to do with video games? At the very least, talk about like Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop gaming. At least that falls within the under the general title of gaming. Now, according to his Twitter, Censored Gaming creates content on how media has changed around the world, which I guess does open up the idea that he wants to cover more things than video games. But then he basically needs to make his spin-off channel, which is fine. If he wants to make censored movies or censored media or censored books, that's fine. And then finally Larry Yerb, formerly known as Major Nelson, apparently lost his mother unexpectedly, although he's a pretty old guy. I don't know how unexpectedly you can lose your mother when you're pushing 60, 70 yourself. And then he also put rest in peace Bob Barker, who died at 99 years old, which I hadn't heard about this from anybody else. I've done an amazing job of avoiding news. I did hear somebody make a joke about somebody getting as close to $1 and then not going over, and I guess that was the joke, that kind of a too soon, tasteless joke of Bob Barker dying at 99 years old instead of 100 years old. Yeah. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to give it a about 6 months, and then I'll probably stop following Major Nelson. Okay. So, try this and see if this works. No face-up cards. I need this field spell to go away. And I don't have a way of doing that. I did change my audio setup a little bit, just a little bit. I had already disabled an auto muting plugin on Firefox because I'm just trying to get rid of as many plugins as possible. Every new plugin uses a lot more RAM for every tab, or uses more RAM for every tab, which adds up. So what I did is I went into the Windows 10 settings and had Firefox play to the voice meter banana auxiliary output, and then because it's playing to the auxiliary output, it won't be picked up by the recording theoretically, and I can potentially play a video and listen to the video myself. I don't know how useful that's really going to be, and I imagine 9 times out of the 10. How in the heck did I win there? That's crazy. Was that just a bot that let me win? Did he run out of time? Seems like he may have surrendered just as I was about to lose. But yeah, me potentially being able to listen to the videos can let me report better, but it also can potentially distract me quite a bit as far as what's going on Firefox. It's still not quite to a point where there's a new event happening, and if anything, they're focusing on Gamescom. One of the things as I was looking through all my games to potentially play is like Little Nightmares 3 was announced. I have Little Nightmares 1, I haven't played it, so it would potentially make some sense to check that out. Marvel Puzzle Quest. 151 bits of DLC. A $100 bit of DLC here, and a $40 bit of DLC here. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous DLC prices. That's interesting. I clicked back and it didn't take me directly back to the page. It took me for a second to a search results. Application Systems Heidelberg. Never heard of them. Games made in New Zealand. Let's see what this developer makes. Plague Doctor of Laperia. We Stay Behind, Lamplight City. I think some of these I've seen. Seems like a collection of games from, I guess, German developers. Need to actually play. This should probably be our last game for today. I did want to play Beneath the Steel Sky, but I do question, is that game a Plague Doctor Laperia? Looks like it's a point and click. Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to play Beneath the Steel Sky unless I'm going to play Beyond the Steel Sky, the very late sequel to Beneath the Steel Sky, released like decades later. And since I don't have that game, I feel like it would be kind of pointless to engage with that. I guess the page just refreshed. New and trending is showing an adult game. Not 2 or 3. Yeah, I was gonna click on the Gamescom page and see if that would have given us a better list of things that were announced at Gamescom. Okay, if I can destroy this one card and he can't do anything else, then I might be able to turn this around. try this. I'm starting to get sleepy. The good news is we really don't have a lot of news, but it's not going to change much. So we reveal this to get this. We can banish this. Return that. I guess we have to leave it at that. So yeah, we have Video Games Chronicle news to go through, and there's about 10 articles here. A lot of this may be just old news anyways, as far as nothing new has been posted, like the Baldur's Gate 3 first major patch being out and a second one coming soon. Starfield leaker being arrested for allegedly stealing copies of the game. Sega and Atlus will stream a special broadcast from the Tokyo Game Show. When is the Tokyo Game Show? September 21st? I guess that's probably in part why the Tokyo Game Show itself is not as successful as I think it probably should be, is that they're all set at fairly late in the year points. And somebody, now with E3 effectively gone, somebody needs to probably pull the trigger and be the first company to say, we're going to move our time schedule up. Tokyo Game Show in February, January might work for them. Although there may just be a case of some game companies just not wanting to announce games that early. But yeah, if I was running Tokyo Game Show, I'd say, when does E3 happen? Let's move our schedule so we present a month before whenever E3 would have happened. Which effectively that, or even a season before, 2 or 3 months would work. Okay. One more victory would give me 50 gems. And then some level victories might give me that light title, which I couldn't care less about. As far as, yeah, I'd need to get 300 more points, which weirdly I guess I have succeeded on that point. I do now recognize I only have 10 hours if I'm going to chase after that. I just didn't have any other daily quests stacked up or anything, so I'll collect all of that. Now, are we completely done with the dual pass? No. Futurama on Hulu. Odd that it came back in the first place, but even more odd, they put out a Christmas episode as their most recent episode. Which, boy, does that boy is that premature. Like, maybe that implies that there aren't any more episodes coming out for Futurama for the season, and we'll just have to wait and see if they'll get renewed for another season. They did something fairly drastic in changing one big aspect of Futurama, but otherwise most of the episodes feel like things that could have been episodes that could have been written years ago. Some of the things they talk about or parody might be newer concepts, but not really. Apparently, according to Video Games Chronicle, the Saints Row reboot is now on Steam and is 67% off for the rest of August. The base game is currently at $19.79, while the $100 Platinum Edition is $32.99. Unfortunately, it really is not a case where the problem is the price in any ways. The problem was the quality. And we can see here it's at 60% with 800 reviews. We could delve into the reviews, and we could try to buy into arguments that there's review bombing going on, but I seriously doubt it is anything. It's a buggy game. It's got a bad story. It's not worth it at free, let alone $32. The 2007 run and gun classic Alien Hominid HD is coming to most modern platforms, but it won't be available on PlayStation consoles. Weird. It was a Flash game on Newgrounds apparently. Then it was ported to the PS2, the Xbox, and the GameCube in 2004, and the Game Boy Advance in 2006. So if I hit play here, then we could look at the trailer, and I can hear the audio playing. A dumb little song. Vast majority of the time, the audio doesn't matter, and you shouldn't be able to hear the video playing the song. Yeah, the vast majority of the time, hearing the audio is not going to be worth it, and it's going to be a distraction. Moving on, Diablo 4's next patch will contain around 40 fixes and gameplay updates, which is a pale comparison to, I believe, the 1,000 updates that Baldur's Gate 3 claimed to have in their first patch. Although, it's kind of a weird argument to say, hey, our game is so glitchy that we can find 1,000 tweaks or bugs to patch in the first patch. Although, in fairness, it's not like Diablo 4 can make the argument that they were such a bug-free experience that 40 fixes were the only 40 that needed to happen. Overall, I'm still not thinking very many people are liking Diablo 4, which is it's a shame. If anything, I would say Blizzard, #1 company when it comes to interesting storyline characters, and then terrible games running those interesting storyline characters into the ground. You have the Zerg and the Queen of Blades storyline in StarCraft that gets run into the ground, and they just stop making StarCraft games. You have kind of interesting Warcraft stories with the original Warcraft games, with the orcs versus the humans. It sorta. I mean, it would have been a very old game, but then they stopped making Warcraft games. You have the Overwatch characters who started off very interesting and didn't go anywhere with that. The cards in Hearthstone, very interesting, didn't go very well with that eventually because people lost interest in Hearthstone. Diablo, probably the best story of them all there. I would say maybe Dungeon Keeper compared to Diablo interests me a little bit more from Bullfrog, but Bullfrog is long since out of business. Yeah, it's really a shame that these series didn't manage to either wrap up and then just end on a high note, or can be continued in some way that isn't just designed around very poor, overly monetized gameplay mechanics. Moving on, WWF No Mercy, spiritual successor Ultra Pro Wrestling, shows off its gameplay and reveals a partial roster. They're using WWF because that was the name of the company back when the game they're comparing it to was released. Although inherently, if the first part of your headline is talking about an old game called WWF No Mercy, instead of it being a headline talking about Ultra Pro Wrestling, which you could easily just eliminate this first part of this headline. Ultra Pro Wrestling shows gameplay, reveals partial roster. That's a perfectly fine headline. You don't need to mention WWF No Mercy in the headline. Xbox apparently has ended its $1 Game Pass promo ahead of the Starfield release. The 14 days for $1 offer was reintroduced in July. Yep. So far so good. People have not really leaked anything about Starfield, but I do believe it is in the hands of reviewers at this point, or at the very least a lot of mainstream video game journalists have seen it behind closed doors. That is definitely another consideration, and I almost feel like that's something special I could potentially do on Twitch, is figure out some way to present all the games I might want to play and see if I could get people to vote on the next game they'd like to see me play. I could certainly do like a poll, but you can only have like 5 or 6 choices on a poll on YouTube, and I would want to see in automation and integration into that. Really, that actually is a great example of something that Twitch definitely should have innovated on. If you could, through an API, tie in your game library, a list of all your games, to Twitch to either show off all the games you have, or to poll your audience as far as what games you might be interested in playing, that would make a lot of sense. Whereas YouTube Gaming, being just a imaginary subsection of YouTube, would never bother to do something like that. Plus, YouTube just doesn't really integrate with any other APIs. Another thing, and this may sound somewhat controversial, but I think if people think about it, it actually probably would be better for everybody. If YouTube got rid of autoplay, because autoplay is effectively cheating and ruining their own algorithm. I've had autoplay on for a couple days, and several times now the autoplay has just started playing a video I would never want to watch from a channel I would have never heard of or ever chosen to watch footage from. So a couple of videos have gotten impressions, my watch history has gotten messed up, all because of autoplay, all because of an algorithm that is feeding on itself like the snake eating its own tail to push people into whatever the algorithm thinks people want to watch, versus being trained to push people towards content they actually want to watch. So if they got rid of autoplay and instead popped up 2 or 3 options that you actively had to click on to watch the next video, that would be better for most people. Now you can turn off autoplay, I think, at least I can with my modded app, but by default it being on is really just hurting content creators and viewers alike and hurting their own algorithm. Now, in a trade-off from that, the reason why YouTube likes autoplay is because babies get handed cell phones with YouTube, and then they just keep on watching the same videos over and over again, or they watch a long string of videos, not the same videos, and they'll sit there and watch hours and hours of YouTube content, which YouTube likes that because it lets them show more ads. So my proposal: get rid of autoplay, pop up 3 options, have an ad playing somewhere in the middle of the screen before the 3 options, before you can click on the 3 options, and if you sit there and don't click on anything to select another video, after about a minute or so, play another ad, and just play another ad. Maybe advertisers won't like that, but yeah, YouTube would. YouTube is obviously doing some level of cheating as far as showing ads anyways, because babies watching hours and hours of videos seeing ads are not the target audience that advertisers really are trying to reach. But yeah, that's my thought. It won't happen, obviously, but yeah. Best thing I can say is turn off autoplay if you can. Xbox being not that generous is not super surprising, but it does, I think, inherently highlight a issue here where you're going to all of a sudden have conflicts between Xbox trying to get Game Pass people and Xbox trying to make money off the sales of a specific game. And the fact that they end it before Starfield and they haven't ended it before any other game really highlights how they are very much trying to succeed and make profit off of Starfield alone. That's the only game they're really interested in at the moment. We already talked about the Red Dead Redemption series writer leaving Rockstar after 16 years. September's 2023 PlayStation Plus headliner has leaked. Saints Row will reportedly come to the subscription service next month, which, yeah, they definitely thought Saints Row Reboot was going to be way more successful, in the sense that there's people talking about it and that they are actually still fulfilling contracts to promote it. Anyways, that brings us to the Gematsu articles. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink has some Gamescom gameplay, 6 minutes of direct feed footage, if you want to check that out at Gematsu. A game called The Big Con is coming to the PS4 and PS5 on August 31st. It's already available for the Xbox One and Switch and Xbox Series and PC. Let's see what it looks like on Steam. well, I guess I can go ahead and put that on the wish list. Now, inherently, until I figure out what it is that stops these videos from playing on Steam, the videos that I would most want to actually listen to are not available here. So yeah, that should be another thing I should work on the long list of things I should work on. Is why do the videos not autoplay on Steam? What blocker do I have installed that's stopping that? Moving on, a game called Soulframe has a TennoCon gameplay and screenshots. I have no idea what TennoCon is. It's a free-to-play action, massively multiplayer online RPG. Apparently TennoCon is a celebration specifically for digital extremes. Well, it looks like it is a kind of Dark Souls style fantasy Elden Ring type game from the looks of it. Doesn't look terrible. Of course, if I leave the videos playing now and I can hear the audio, that's something that's going to be a distraction, so definitely I'm going to have to go back up and like pause the videos. Yeah, do I have anything to say about Soulframe really? Not at the moment. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R DLC character Leon Abacchio launches September 1st. I think we already heard that. Double Dragon Collection game overview trailer is available if you want to check that out. I did hear some feedback as far as the Metal Gear Solid collection, in that it feels like Konami has done a very poor job of porting the games, and they didn't really try, which isn't super surprising considering it's Konami. For a brief second there had been enough of a pause that maybe you could have forgotten that Konami is a pretty terrible company that doesn't care about video games. Particularly in the pandemic, it seemed like they may have been a little bit more desperate and may have decided to actually care about video games, but at least for the Metal Gear Solid re-release, it doesn't seem like they were trying to really satisfy the fan base. If anything, this may just be a direct insult against the creator of Metal Gear Solid, which that inherently also should temper any hype around the 2 or 3 Silent Hill games that are in development, which we haven't heard anything about those lately. Let's see, a game called Pizza Possum launches September 28th according to Komatsu. Let's see what that is. Yeah, really couldn't tell you what kind of game it is. Single player local co-op. You're supposed to run around and eat food. Looks like it might be more of a party game. Yep, and then we had already talked about Atli or Arena. So we'll leave it at that. Now, it is weird that there's seemingly two groups of people in this Atelier series, and I'd say the group of people over here don't 100% feel like they should be from the Atelier series in the first place. And that will bring us to GameDeveloper.com, which apparently has no new news. I definitely started perhaps too early today, but looking at where we're going to end up as far as today's stream, had I fallen asleep, it definitely would have been somewhere between 5 and 9 o'clock in the evening before I started streaming otherwise. And I don't really have a good thought as far as how to fix that. So let's see. We have a game called Join Tiles as a fall list cleanup from February, which it is effectively just a puzzle game. Yeah. Now I'd say at this point it's just not going to be relevant enough for me to care about it, so that's got to leave the fall list. I have no idea why the tabs are jumping around again. Like, I never did figure out why that was happening before. Johnny Lionface. I guess it also leaves the fall list. Joe Wanderer and the Enigmatic Adventurers. Doesn't quite have 30 reviews, but does have 27, so I think I'll go ahead and just say yes to this and put it on the wish list. You don't have to be that big of a stickler. Job Simulator is a VR only game, so it has to stay on the fall list until I decide to get rid of VR games in general. And GVTAM looks like some kind of weird Indian game from 2021, so I have to say no to that. Going through the J names of games is always going to be weird. Javana is rated very positively. I'll put that on the wish list, or you know what, it's free to play. It's added to library. That is one of the things that I've probably decided at this point, is that I'm not really gonna bend over backwards to remember whether I got a game for free or not. Like, the price of video games, I seriously doubt it affects me at all. Like, of all the years I've been running this YouTube channel, I don't think I've ever really thought about, oh, that game was too expensive after playing it, or oh, that game was so cheap after playing it. There's just such a long break in time between when I bought most games and even when I've played them. So, yeah. Those kinds of disclosures should happen, definitely. But you know what? They come off kind of cheesy too. Is this a player versus player game? No, weirdly it's a single player game. Co-op, 4-player, tag team, beat 'em up. That's what they say it is. But then it says single player only. So it's not labeled correctly. says you can control the entire Jitsu squad in this on a single quest, or play with a friend and choose 2 characters each. The combo possibilities are insane and satisfactory. I think I want to say no to this in general, just because I'm not really seeing anything here that makes me think this beat 'em up game is the beat 'em up game I want to play. Yep. I think I want to limit myself down to things like River City Girls or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games, things that have a little bit more relevancy than Jitsu Squad, which obviously isn't that relevant because I don't recognize it. We have what looks like a complicated Sudoku game, but it's not relevant enough, so it's gotta go. Here we have a jigsaw puzzle game, which is not relevant, so it's gotta go. We have something called Gesture King, which looks like one of these Western, says it's LGBTQ plus visual novels. Which, yeah, there definitely was a time where I was probably putting Western visual novels on the fall list to try and find a balance there, but I think my real balance there is that I'm barely going to play any visual novels at all, and that means I'm going to play the best of the best, and almost certainly that is going to be mostly Japanese anime looking visual novels. I just don't think I have enough attention span to play what is at best going to be a mediocre Western visual novel. This Jessica is mixed reviewed, so he can leave. And so that very quickly, now we're only an hour and a half into the stream, brings us to all the new games that came out on Steam. So what do we have? We have a Raft clone called Sunken Land, which is mostly positive. I'll put this on the fall list. It looks to me, though, like it's probably already been early access listed. Yeah, 2020, like August 25th, I bet it's not the first day. That was another thing I thought about doing, is making the YouTube shorts grab the date that's mentioned here and use that as part of the file name. It would overly complicate things for a small benefit of having YouTube shorts organized by the date of their release, which I just don't think it's worth it. I guess out of an abundance of caution, I will make a YouTube short around Sunken Land. Next we have a game called Dream Sketcher, which looks like it's a little bit too much of everything. Looks like it's all over the place with cards and top-down strategy gameplay, it looks like. Did this just come out of early access? It's English and Chinese. Why is it so positively reviewed again? This could be a dangerous precedent if we start to see Chinese games or any kind of game coming out and then over the weekend having so many different, such a high number of reviews. Alright, well, I'm gonna, I guess, again, just make a short on it. I can't justify not. Then we have, is this the exact same publisher? No. We have what looks like yet another Chinese game. Wouldn't be surprised if this really is the same people though. Putting out several Chinese games in a row. Oriental Dynasty Silk Road Defense War, though, looks like a tower defense game, and I can easily dismiss that. Next we have Samurai Vandalism, which definitely looks like one of these RPG Maker games where the characters would be naked, but they've taken out the adult content, and the actual game is not even really focused on. It's barely in the background. $19.99 Japanese, full audio claims. No DLC or adult patch. It really sucks to potentially have a censored version of games released on Steam in any form from any source. I would kind of prefer games like this just not show up on Steam in the first place if they must be censored out of protest, if for no other reason. Because you can kind of tell when you have characters with cleavages that are this big that that's going to be a big part of the story, like a major part of the plot, pun intended, I suppose. And to lose that is to then be left with just the bad parts of a game, and nobody wants that. Let's see, Lucky Land looks like it's a slot machine style game. Does it have any purchases? No. It's an English and Chinese game. Does it look particularly interesting as a slot machine game? Well, it looks like it may have a little too many currencies for its own good, but maybe not. I'd have to really think about it if I was going to play a game that was based around the gameplay mechanic of slot machines. I think the answer to that is probably no, because at a certain level what I would want is it to just play itself and be an idle game with the slot machine gambling mechanic, and yeah, that would be very hard to play or criticize if I'm actually not doing anything, or if I'm just clicking a button to make a slot machine spin. So yeah, I'm gonna say no to Lucky Land. Next we have another Chinese game called Tasking for $1.39. Seems like we're getting quite a lot of Chinese games over this weekend. The leverage game, management board game. Apparently this is a board game from like 20 years ago. So you know what, I'll be generous and put it on the fall list and see if anybody reviews it. Wait a minute. Nope, I will not. Not when the game is $1,000. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. If this is a game that was made 20 years ago, even, then somebody should have cloned it or made it in tabletop simulators, or just made a game that's not $1,000. That's ridiculous. Alright, this game is just garbage, so we can say no to that. This game also is probably garbage, so we can say no to that. Ancient Viking doesn't look quite visually polished enough. Dark Astral looks too repetitive in the background and foreground. Solid colored ground, repetitive background, so that's going to be a no. Snow Blocks, I feel like we'd already seen a game like this as far as a block balancing game, so I'm going to say no to that. And yeah, this might be an example of how quickly one can get through all the new games when there aren't any adult games to over focus on or talk about. I'm gonna say no to Forgotten Roads. Well, I spoke too soon. The new and trending game that was on the front page is here, called Sex Bar Simulator, which I feel like there was another game by a very similar name, if not the exact same name, but this is a totally different game, for sure. 3D CGI characters with a realistic color palette, and yeah, this time the activities are happening seemingly right in the bar, and then part of the gameplay mechanic seems to actually be a bartender, which is an odd gameplay mechanic, but particularly in a 3D CGI visual way. The bartending aspect on that seems fairly weird, but you know, as far as reviews go, it's 86% positive with 96 reviewers. So apparently this game is fairly good. It's selling for $6.19. It says it has English full audio in it. The bartending aspect, though, feels like that is the thing you're mostly going to focus on here, is actually making cocktails. As far as the adult content, it doesn't really seem like it's that much, nor does it feel like it's really going in any specific fetish. But I guess the reviews are in, so people like it. I don't feel like I need to put down the follow list because I already have seen positive reviews on it. It definitely would still be very far away from the idea of a game I could criticize or play, even if I could like censor it and play it on YouTube. Like, what can I really say about something like that? This game, Poached Hunt the Hunter, probably isn't anything, but it looks good enough to give it a chance. Digitanks doesn't look like anything of interest. Moving in, feels like this is trying to make name confusion with the game Moving Out, where you pack everything away. I don't know why you specifically would want to play a game around moving into a house, which is an annoying thing nobody likes, really. Sure, it's nice to potentially have a new house and then start over from a blank slate as far as decorating and having a clean house, but the actual activity of unpacking boxes and setting up your stuff is not fun. I don't think anybody really likes it. It's just a necessity. Moving on, we have a game called Long Way. Immersive arcade driving simulator with a diverse vehicles and customization. It looks like an asset flip game to me, so I'm gonna say no. White middle guy simulator. Potentially not something that should be allowed on Steam without somebody looking at it first. But whatever. They say it's the most boring game ever made, which definitely doesn't make me want to play it. And then we have ANX Racers Space Drift, which looks like it's a top-down space racing game. It doesn't look polished enough. Okay. Does this have any mature content? Yes, it does. Is the mature content YouTube family friendly? Enough in the screenshots. Yes, it is. At least I'm gonna go ahead and claim that. So here we have clerics versus goblins, not versus goblins. We have some 3D anime characters in kind of an asset flip game fighting goblins. Now, there's another series of games where you have these anime girls and then they get captured by goblins and then tied up and tortured. And this feels like this is a VR game. Surprise of all things, it's VR. Working around that same concept. You can see the goblins here have nowhere as much attention put on them. And here you can see the cleric tied up. Yeah. Well, I guess I would want to check here is if this developer was the same developer of the other games, but it doesn't seem like that is the case. And yeah, this video is playing. You can see it's very first person and very bloody. The direct control of being able to stab people, I think, adds a significant amount of violence and gore to it than you would normally expect in a game. And they're saying it's like Hades and Dead Cells, and yeah. Recommendation algorithm is pretty bad. You can see the review here is also very bad. So yeah, I'm gonna say no to cleric and goblins. But clearly there's some small percentage of game developers out there, or at least one person, who has this fetish around tying up anime asset flip girls. Moving on, we have a game called Merge Adventure, which, you know, there might be something to that. 2048 style game has in-app purchases, so that gives me some pause, but yeah, I guess I should ask myself, since we have so many YouTube shorts being made anyway, should I really promote something with in-app purchases, some mobile game being put on Steam? No, I don't think I do want to promote that, because we're looking for better quality experiences, and the Merge Adventure game here is really just trying to obviously get some microtransactions off of a fairly generic concept. Next we have a game called Truth, which looks like it is a full motion video. Which there might be something around this that works, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is incredibly short and not well thought out. This does highlight how full motion videos potentially can just be you sitting in front of a green screen, and that works fairly well. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Should I make a YouTube short on this? No, the screenshots are not varied enough. And I'm iffy about it being a really good an actual game. Fish or Chicken looks like it's just a cheap top-down twin-stick shooter game. So nothing there. Then we have another adult game called The Entrepreneur, which I have to applaud them for at least having some creative title here. It's 3D CGI ladies in realistic color palette or Western art style. It's an adult visual novel. Doesn't seem like there's a secondary gameplay mechanic. Which I guess inherently that would mean you would need to know what the story is or be interested in the story, and the basic description is not really touching on the story, and all the screenshots are just showing me a lot of people, often people making out or doing more than making out. The Entrepreneur is $9.99. It says it has English, full audio. A young man leaves his college and friends to fulfill his deceased father's dream to renovate and open a bar he dedicated his life to, and therefore become an entrepreneur, is the description in the title. In the gameplay description. Looks like there's 4 ladies to pick from. I guess inherently adult visual novels probably shouldn't be on the fall list any more than mediocre visual novels should be. Inumida is the next game. Turn-based RPG game. Doesn't look like anything. Dungeon Evolution Nemesis. There might be something to this, so I'll give that a follow. Aggregator Elevator System. Looks like it's a puzzle game. It might be something to that. Next, Looper Tactics. Looks interesting enough. Sudoku Puzzle is too simplistic of a name, so I'm gonna say no to that. Blue Wednesday says it's a point and click, and that's what it looks like. We may have a good weekend for point and clicks then. Usually I can only find maybe 1 point and click in a week or so, and I've already seen 2 today. This doesn't look like anything. A math block puzzle game. There might be something interesting in this, but it's also Might be the kind of game that I play and then find out I've forgotten everything I knew about math. I'll give it a chance though. We have a game called The Orphanage, which looks like it's probably an asset flip dark screenshot horror game. Yeah, nothing impressive there. And then Anonymous Hacker Simulator Prologue. Do you really need a prologue for something like that? No, and should you really be playing a game that pretends like you're hacking? Because there's better versions of that, actually, if you want to pretend like you're hacking. And there is always the concern that you may think you're pretending like you're hacking and then it may be hacking you, or you may be hacking someone else without knowing it. Metroplex Zero, Sci-Fi Card Battler. I'm gonna put this on the follow list, but the art is a little weak, so I'm not gonna make a follow short on it. I don't know why I'm making these decisions when I really should just be making a short for everything. Traffic Tour doesn't look like anything, but at some point I started curating, and I guess now that's just going to be the way it is. Dindem looks like it's a low polygon horror game. Hide and seek or style game. Yeah, for the screenshots it's showing me, that's not impressive enough. Touhou Dew Valley looks like it's half Stardew Valley, half Touhou game. It is what it's selling itself as. I don't think it's half of either of those games. I think it's way worse. Let's see, Cyber Prison Management looks very weird. I'm gonna be generous and give it a follow, but no short. Toufra doesn't look like anything. Almost done. Cloud Jump. Seems like we've almost completely gotten away from the jumping asset flip games. This one is a different art style, so I'm willing to give it a chance, although I really shouldn't. Looks like it's more of a mobile game. Yeah. Nothing interesting for Midnight Thunder Drive. Obsidian. Feels like an old point and click adventure. See, generally when you see a game like this, they really should tell you when this originally came out, because if this came out actually in 2023, then I should dismiss it completely. But if you told me this actually came out in 1990, then there might be some relevance to it. I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. I'll give it a follow and see if it has any relevance today, and then if people review it. But yeah, it's not pretty enough to make a short around, or relevant enough in my mind at the moment to make a short around. Rocket Jockey looks like a really old game too, but I can dismiss that much easier. Death Again also looks like it might be an old game, but I wouldn't be surprised if this one's brand new. Regardless, again, easily dismissed. The Colorful Creature. Now we really only saw like 3 adult games over the weekend, and noticeably none of them wore the bright colorful palette of the anime style adult games. So, is it time to raise an alarm and say censorship is happening? No, but we'll keep an eye out for the rest of the week. Then our last game is called Binding of Elements, which doesn't look like anything. So actually that was a fairly small number of games to make YouTube shorts on, like 4, 8, 10. Yeah, I have 10 tabs left over after this 2-hour stream. Yes, I could play a little bit more. I'd have to get severely lucky though in the remaining time as far as victories to get up to 300. I could try for one more victory and get 50 gems. 50 gems is barely worth anything at all. It'd be easier to simply wait. And obviously I'm not logging in every day to get all of these gems. So had I logged in 3 more days this month, I would have gotten 60 gems. Anyways. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.